Welcome to your first lecture on requirements engineering in the winter semester 25-26. We'll do a quick lecture on organizational aspects of this course now. You will essentially get all important information that you need to know about this course, and whenever you have any questions throughout the course, you can always go back, of course, to the slides, but also to this video. So first, who's going to teach this course? On one hand, myself, Benjamin. Anand will be partially part of this course, especially for the later exercises, and Chintan will be your main point of contact. He's currently sick, but still listening to this lecture. And also Nelly is today supporting us with the recording, but she won't be involved in this course anymore because she has other teaching obligations. So myself and Chintan are the people that you will be most talking to and interacting with. Quick intro of our research group in general, because we're not just doing the requirements engineering course. In general, the emerging technologies for the circular economy group focuses essentially at everything that is at the intersection of computer science and sustainability. So where can we use digital technologies or digital tools to foster sustainability? The sustainability aspects can have different forms. It could be circular economy, so recycling, repair, reuse of different materials, products, and services, but also like going in the direction of food production, which is essentially one of our main focuses of research, the sustainable and resilient food production. So very simple, the question, how can we make sure that we still have enough food despite the environment that we live in getting more and more adverse every day due to climate change, environmental pollution, or just the lack of resources on our planet. So that is what we're mainly doing. You can find more information on our website or by visiting all of our other courses. There is this semester the course Limits to Growth, which starts on Thursday and is open to everyone. So you can join if you're a bachelor student, you can join if you're a master student, you can join as a PhD student, you can even join if you're not enrolled at this university at all. We don't care. We welcome everyone. If you want to have credits for this course, you just have to make sure that you can also use it in your study program. So everyone can participate and attend, but you have to make sure if you can get credits for that course. Another course that we offer is Emerging Technologies for the Circular Economy. That course always takes place in the summer semester. Some of you might have already participated in this course. We will upgrade and reinvent that course for the next summer semester. Anand, that you have seen on the slide before that, is already working on a major upgrade or update for this course. So if you're interested in some of those topics, then you're very much welcome to join us also in the summer semester. If you would like to have some more details on our research group, you can, of course, download the slides from Study, click on this link. There you'll find information like course materials, thesis and project topics, publications, what research projects we're currently working on, and so on and so on. We also linked a few YouTube videos here, unfortunately only in German. They are a little bit older now, but they still give you a little bit of an idea what we are doing here. And if you would like to work for us in a certain capacity, if you're looking for a job, you can write us an email. Unfortunately, as of this very moment we're recording this, we do not have any open positions, but that might change at the beginning of next year. So just keep an eye on our website, or just let us know at the beginning of next year if you're looking for a job. What is this course all about now? So the title is Requirements Engineering. That is the broad topic, but what does that entail? So first, we'll tackle the core terminology and core tasks of requirements engineering before we then take the next step in looking at the whole requirements engineering process. So what are the different steps that you have to do to elicit, document, understand the requirements of any given project? There are different techniques how you can get the requirements of or from your client or out of your client essentially to make any project happen. Once you have those requirements, then you have to also properly document it. There are also various methods to do that. You can just write them down as a text. You can do model-based or formal requirement specifications. We'll look into those in more detail. Then we look into requirements negotiation, because sometimes you have conflicting requirements that you somehow have to unify. And once you have a huge amount of requirements, you also need to manage them. And then the final two aspects are traceability, where you essentially concern yourself with questions like, where did this requirement come from? Like, what is the origin? Because sometimes in large projects, you have a requirement, and it's not quite clear where it came from and what the reasoning was to phrase that requirement in exactly that way and assign constraints A, B, and C to that. And then finally, requirements validation and quality assurance. And I know that sounds rather abstract, but you are often doing requirements engineering in your daily life. Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily tied to any engineering or software project. If you're looking for a new flat or a new apartment, you automatically and intuitively do requirements engineering, because you put certain requirements in your head or on paper that your new flat or apartment needs to fulfill. You have probably a maximum price that you are willing to pay for a new apartment. You also have probably a minimum size. Like, an apartment with less than 5 square meters might be a little bit small for most human beings. You also have requirements with respect to the location. You might want an apartment in Clausthal, but you're also okay to live in Goslar if the price is right, or if there are like other cool features of that flat. So there are some core requirements that definitely need to be fulfilled. The right location, the right size, the right price. And then there are other, let's say, negotiable requirements or nice to have requirements that you might have. So pre-furnished might be a plus, or like a pro or a con. Having a bathtub instead of just a shower might also be nice. Having a pool, a sauna, a VR gaming room, a basement, or whatever, like all of those might be additional requirements that make this one flat A nicer or more nice to have than another option B that does not fulfill those requirements. So you have probably all done this in one way or another. And if you haven't done it for an apartment, then you might have done it to buy a car, a bike, even a computer. Because even there you have to decide, like, what do I actually need? What do I want? What are the critical properties of this product, service, apartment that I want to have? And now we're essentially taking this intuitive process and formalizing it, because it might work very intuitively for smaller stuff. This is also true for smaller software projects. But as soon as you're working in a more complex environment, like for a company in the industry context, this just doesn't work well anymore. So at the end of this course, you should then know what are the core terms and core tasks of requirements engineering. For example, what is the definition of a requirement? You should also understand the complete requirements engineering process with all its steps in between, and you should be able to choose, justify, and apply appropriate methods and techniques for each of the steps in the requirements engineering process under various constraints or properties. So this is essentially what you're supposed to be able to do once you have completed this course. Quick disclaimer, most of this course is modeled and built based on the book Requirements Engineering Fundamentals, Principles, and Techniques from Klaus Pohl. And also some of the slide material that we use is based on what Professor Dr. Steffen Herbold and Christian Bartelt, Christian Bartelt now also being a professor and joined TU. Was a quick disrupt in my audio, sorry about that. So Christian Bartelt also just joined TU Clausthal this year and is now our new AI professor. So if you want to do some courses with him, I can highly recommend that. But he also at some point taught this course and he left us some valuable material. So thanks to both Steffen and Christian for providing us some of the foundations for this course. So this being the visual overview of what I just described to you before by means of words. It's essentially the whole requirements engineering process. We'll first do the requirements analysis, afterwards the management, and we'll come back to this very figure again and again and again and again, just to visualize for you at what stage of the requirements engineering process we are right now so that you can always put it into perspective. So first elicitation, then negotiation, documentation, validation, change management, and tracing. And before we do all of that, we're going to look at the core terminology. What are the lecture dates? Today, 3rd of November. If you're either watching this video or even participating live, you successfully made it to the first lecture, which is marked as a BBB online lecture. The rest of the course is a so-called massive open online course. We'll come back to that in a second. And then we'll have another live lecture session on the 16th of February 2026, which is just before the exam. We'll also get to that point, where we have one full lecture session just for you to prepare for the exam, ask us any type of questions. We also have an exercise schedule where we have 8 exercises, but we'll also get to the score system of exercises. What do we need to be eligible for the exam in a few slides. So those 2 slides are just for you as reference frames that you know, okay, at which point in time do we have what topic and when are the exercises published and when are they supposed to be submitted. Good. So course organization with specific focus on the lectures. I already mentioned that most of this course is structured as a so-called massive open online course. We have a website that you can see here, requirementsengineering.etce-lab.de. If you go on that website, you will also find this video once we finished recording it and then uploaded it, but also all further lecture material. Everything is already online there right now. So if you are very keen and motivated, you can watch all lectures today before the sun goes down. Well, maybe not before the sun goes down, but before midnight. So all the content is already there. We pre-produced everything. The slides are available on one hand on Studapi, but also the most recent version is always available on GitHub. So if we find mistakes in our slides and fix them, or if we update the lecture and exercise schedule, always check GitHub every now and then. GitHub is the source of truth. We just uploaded the Studapi stuff for your convenience once now, so that you know some of the stuff that is already here, but always check the GitHub if anything has changed with respect to the organization of this course. Besides the lectures that you do yourself, as you have already guessed by now, because all the lecture content is online, we will offer exercise and Q&A sessions on BBB. We'll come to that on the next slide. The exercise time slots are purely, as the name suggests, like Q&A sessions for questions and eventual tutorials related to the exercises. So if you have any questions about the lecture content, you can ask those questions there. If you struggle with some of the exercises, you can ask questions there. Sometimes we prepare live tutorials that I cannot really promise yet if we can record all of them or not. So please take those Q&A sessions serious. And if you have any questions outside those Q&A sessions, you can always write us an email, but only to this email address. We will only respond to emails written to this specific email addresses because there are 3 people involved here. At least myself, Anand, and Chintan. We do not want to get an email, like each of us an email from the same student with the same topic, and then 3 of us have to take the time to reply. Each of us has access to this special purpose email address. We are all monitoring this special purpose email address and will try to get back to you as soon as possible. All other emails will be ignored if they do not go to this special purpose email address. We also do not talk about, like via StudIP, if you have questions about this course, please use this email address. If you send us an email and you do not get a reply, please check if you have used that special purpose email address for this course. I'm just iterating this again and again and again now because past experience has proven that still 30% of the students do not adhere to this rule. So if you do not get a reply, please check that you have used the correct email address. Good. Date, times, and locations, just for the sake of completeness. So Mondays, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. the theoretical lecture time. Since you have all the lecture material online available, you can choose whatever you like to do. This lecture today and on the 16th of February, we'll use this big blue button live link and do a live session. Exercises and Q&As are happening bi-weekly. We start today, right after this lecture, where you can ask a lot of organizational questions. And then the next meeting is in 2 weeks from now. And we'll do it in a bi-weekly setup via big blue button. It's the same link as this room that you're currently in, and the same room as the lecture room. So there's nothing to confuse, or you just have to save one link or bookmark one link. Exercises. How are the exercises organized? You have to submit them individually. There are no group submissions. Plagiarism will be punished by failing at least an exercise or even the full course by not being eligible to join the exam. The exercises are either multiple choice or practical tasks where you have to submit a piece of paper. Usually you have 7 to 14 days to submit. Some smaller tasks, you just have 7 days. Some bigger tasks, you might get 2 weeks. The submission deadline is always Mondays, 1:59 p.m., so just before the theoretical actual lecture. And it is mandatory to submit each of the exercises. However, and now it becomes complicated, or not actually, it's just something that you please always remember. Some of those exercises are multiple choice. They are part of the Massive Open Online Course website. One example is the first exercise that you will have to do. Those are multiple choice questions which are directly part of the Massive Open Online Course. Every multiple choice exercise is purely for your self-evaluation. So you take the first exercise, it tells you go to that website and then answer all the questions. You click submit, and you can see which questions you answered correctly or incorrectly. We do not see your results. Clicking submit just shows you the solutions. This is purely for you. Therefore, we cannot grade those exercises. Those exercises are purely to show you whether you understood the content thus far and whether you should maybe go back to a particular topic to fully understand it. We do not see the results. We do not grade them, and therefore they do not count into the 50% of points or 50% of the points that you need to get to be eligible for the exam. No multiple choice exercise counts for the exam. There are exercises, you should do that, we encourage you to do them, but we cannot see the results. This is totally anonymous, okay? I'm also making this that clear because, once again, past experience have shown that a lot of students do not remember this when it comes to passing the exams. So, essentially what I just said, self-evaluated, available directly on the MOOC website, we do not see the results. All the other exercises that are not multiple choice contain practical tasks that you have to submit via Moodle. If you go to StudIP now, click on the course, there is a Moodle tab. If you click on that Moodle tab, you will be forwarded to Moodle, And for each exercise, once the exercise have been published, you will automatically see a option to submit your results. Those are timed according to the exercise schedule, so they will be available when the exercise is published, and they will close 7 to 14 days after the exercise was published, essentially when the submission deadline is over. So once again, multiple choice exercises, self-evaluated on the MOOC website. They do not count towards the exam eligibility. They're purely for you. Practical tasks via Moodle, they count towards your exam eligibility. So that means all the Moodle tasks have to be submitted. In those 8 exercises, I counted the multiple choice as well, but I don't have to repeat myself now again. From those that you submitted to Moodle, you have to get at least 50% of the possible points. There's one requirement to be eligible for the exam. The other is that you submit all Moodle exercises. If you do not fulfill all the criteria, then you failed. Only exception for not submitting an exercise is a doctor's note that we get before the submission deadline and not 3 months after. I'm also mentioning that because that happened in the past. So, all Moodle exercises need to be submitted, and you have to get at least 50% of the possible points. The final exam date, tentative now, but I hope to confirm it in a few weeks from now, is the 2nd of March from 2 to 4 p.m. It's going to be a written exam of 2 hours. Most likely via Moodle, depends a little bit on how many students we have at the end who are eligible to participate in the exam, because right now 200 people registered. It's really hard to fit 200 people in a room, and it's going to be a lot of paper, a lot of trees that we would need to kill to print all the paper for a written paper exam. But we'll keep you posted on that. Some material in our lecture slides has this green star, the self-study star. That content is optional or additional and not mandatory for the examination. However, we felt compelled to include it into the lecture material because it might be beneficial for your future career. If you want to work in the industry, if you want to even become potentially a requirements engineer, this might be helpful for you. So read it, that probably won't hurt. And if you don't have the time, or if you're just not interested enough in requirements engineering, then you can also ignore it. Of course, we encourage you to please have a look, but if you don't want to, it's fine. Literature list. I already said most or a big part of this course follows the Pole book, Requirements Engineering Fundamentals, Principles, and Techniques. There are a few further recommendations that we made. You don't need to buy any of those books. You can pass this course with just the videos, the exercises, and the slides. However, you might feel like you would learn more about this topic or like parts of the course content, then you can go to those books. Maybe I'm also not excellent at explaining every topic. Then you can also go to the book and see if those authors can describe the topics better. You can also look at alternative definitions there. That's also totally fine. So you can look at this literature, but you don't have to. And this concludes the organizational intro session. We'll cut the recording now, and then we go straight to the Q&A session. And